Hey, Dad Tired. This video I'm putting out is really for chapter 1 of Intentional Father. The title is There's a Need for Fathers. So, first off, chapter 1. Wow, right? There's definitely some stopping points in this chapter. And what I mean by that is it kind of makes you stop and think. Makes you wrestle with it a little bit. Chapter 1, he says a question in there. He says, have you ever doubted your ability as a father? I don't know about you guys, but there's been times I've wondered, am I equipped for this? Do I have the tools I need? And so, I read that question. I said, yeah, I have. And so I'm looking forward to this book, the discussion, wrestling with the questions. What do we do with this? As we go on. A few pages later, he says, when we're raising a child, what we're actually communicating based on this phrase, I want you in my life. I'm going to take responsibility for you. I'm going to give you everything I can to help you grow up and mature into the best person you can be. And that just kind of hit me. I guess that's implied, but to actually hear that put into words and phrased, I was just like, whoa. I mean, yeah, of course that's what it means. But, sometimes you just hear it phrased differently or put it into words and described, and it just gets you. That's what it was for me. One thing, though, is, we may have wondered if we have the tools but no matter what, we made that decision. We're going to raise these kids. They're mine. They're ours. And we want them to not only survive, but to thrive and to go out into the world and make an impact. And so what are we? He says we are determined to get it right. We are determined to pass on a legacy of blessing instead of brokenness. We are determined to raise a child of consequence. Now, guys, I don't know your story. I don't know what you've gone through. I don't know what you've experienced. You guys might have had a family culture where your family has been Christians for generations. You might be a first generation Christian. You might have come out of brokenness. You might have come out of whatever, and you're trying to figure this out. But by the fact that you are in this group and you want to go through this book and you want to read it and discuss it and reflect on these questions, I think says that you are determined. You are determined to raise that child of yours or children of consequence. Now, the book is geared towards fathers raising sons. But I know there's been questions of fathers with daughters. Can they jump in? And I'm not going to exclude them at all. Because I believe we need not only young men of integrity and honor and truthfulness and righteousness, but we need young ladies of the same character. And so for us fathers that have only sons in this group, or fathers with sons and daughters, it's as much for us as it is for the fathers with only daughters. I'm hoping and I'm praying that through the conversation in the book, as we go through and interact with one another, we can learn, no matter what stage of life we're in, with young kids or older kids or somewhere in between, sons or daughters or both, that we can take it and learn and reflect and be able to turn around and raise our sons to say, you are a man now. This is what you need to do. This is how you need to go out and interact with the world. And at the same time for our daughters, and say, these are the men you want to find. So I'm not excluding anyone. In fact, I'm inviting any and all guys to jump in and to learn. But one thing that I noticed that really stood out to me in the book, and part of it's very well possible because I've been interested in fatherhood statistics for years, and I've noticed it around the world, that he mentions here is the idea of some type, in almost everywhere else in the world, is some type of process to transition boys into adulthood, into men. They go through this process or this ceremony or whatever, and they're done with it, and they're like, you're a man now. But for the most part, here in the United States, he says, we don't have anything. It's, okay, you graduated high school. You're a man. You're married. You're a man. At what stage does a child move from a child to a man, from a child to adult here in the United States? Is it when you can legally smoke, legally drink, you get your driver's license, you go off to college, you graduate high school, you get married? When is it? And he's right with that. We don't have that set standard. And so that stuck out to me. And so what happens is a falling out of this, right? He mentions is that we don't have those older men, and sometimes we do, but for more often than not, we have this older generation. They're not pushing and ushering and challenging and equipping and having a ceremony for our young boys, our young guys, to say, you're a man now. And so what happens? He says boys are taking this on themselves, and then we end up with this this weird situation we find ourselves in. You get on the internet, and there's the jokes and the stories and everything of the 40-year-old guys living in their parents' basement. How true that is, I don't know. But the point remains with it is they're not really truly men, is the thought and the call. And so what are you going to do with your young men, your young boys that you have at your house? My oldest is 8 years old. Our culture says you turn 18, you move out, you do your own thing. That being said, I have about 10 years left with my oldest son. It scares me a little bit because those 10 years are probably going to go by a lot quicker than I realize. And the reality is they are, because it feels like almost yesterday I brought my son home from the hospital, my firstborn, and he's 8 years old now. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, those next years that I have left before he's out on his own are going to flash by. They're going to go by so quickly. And so I'm thinking, where do we go from here? And that's a great question. This book, I'm hoping that will help answer that, help guide that. Chapter 1, there's a need for fathers. I love that title. It's not saying, do fathers matter? Is there a reason to have fathers? No, it says it up right away. There is a need. Absolutely, they matter. And granted, John is a pastor of a church, but what does the Bible teach? Fathers absolutely matter. At the very end of chapter 1, he says, what kind of father are you? And that's a great question. Obviously, we'll seek to answer that. He will seek to answer that in chapter 2, in the next chapters. But to end this video is, what kind of father are you? Are you a father that wants to lead with intentionality? I'll be honest, I haven't read chapter 2 yet, but when I think about that question, I think of a few different fathers. And I know chapter 2 is called 5 different kinds of fathers, but for me, and I'll be interested to see if this is actually what he lists, or some of them. But are you going to be the father that, like the movie Courageous, at the very end there, he's giving his speech, and it's in the movies, it's all designed to get us to make a choice, make a reaction, right? He says, are you going to be the type of guy, the father that says, yeah, you know what, we need to be involved in our kids' lives, but we really don't do much? Are we going to be the one, a father that says, you know what, I need to step up and I need to get more involved? Or unfortunately, like the one father in Courageous, he says, yeah, I'm going to take this pledge and I'm going to choose to do this, but then end up giving up or compromising on the way? Are we going to jump in all in and really make an intentional choice with that? That's only 4, and he says 5. So I'm really interested to see what John says on the types of fathers. But what about us? If you haven't read the chapter already, or if you have, think about that. What kind of father are you? What kind of father do you want to be? Again, it goes back to, if you're here, you're involved in this discussion, you're going to read this book. Obviously, you're seeking to be intentional. You want to be intentional. Maybe your main question, like mine is you're not sure where to start. And that's okay. Because that's part of the group, the format of this is that we would learn together. What does the scripture say? Iron sharpens iron. That we would come alongside one another, that we would encourage one another, right? That's the purpose of this group. So, going back, what kind of father are you? I want you to think about that. And, feel free to drop comments to this post. If you haven't read chapter 1, do that. The questions that we will seek to answer are listed right there at the end of chapter 1. Those questions I will officially post on Wednesday, but feel free to make your own post and start the conversation, and that's good. Let us, don't wait for me. That's what this is here for. I said it in another video, but I want to put it in this one too, guys. I have topics set up in the group for each chapter to kind of keep things organized, so things don't get lost and we can stay on topic. So feel free to use those. Please use those if you're creating your own post, and be on the lookout. And, I'm so looking forward to this, being able to discuss with you guys. Anyways, God bless. Take care. Praying for all of you guys, and let's be intentional fathers. God bless.